Hello my friends, thanks for joining me on my first watercolor tutorial. I taught a Christmas card class this past weekend and I wanted to share with you my technique for creating the Christmas trees. I'm starting off with a colored pencil, but you can use a regular 2B pencil if you like. My first step is to make a few very light guidelines for myself. I've got one going down the middle for my tree and then a wavy one in the background for my horizon line. From there, I'll grab my medium-sized brush. You can see I've got a number 6. I'm going to fill it up with water, and I'm going to put that water into the 3 colors on my palette that I'll be using. And so you can see I've got a phthalo blue, that's my darker blue, and a turquoise, that's the middle one, and then I'm also going to be using an azo green. It's a green that's got a lot of yellow in it. I'm putting a lot of water in there because I want a little puddle to work with today. So once I've got my brush loaded up with the azo green, I'm going to draw a line on that little light guideline that I made with my colored pencil. So next what I'm going to do is fill in the branches, and I'm going to make little tapering branches that follow down the sides of the tree. I don't want them to be symmetrical and even on both sides because then it looks contrived and not as natural. But I'm going to press down with the side of my brush and gently lift up to make that nice taper. Then I'll go along and fill in the spaces. So now that I've got the branches filled in, I'm going to use my little number 1 brush to fill in the little pine needle details. And I'll show you this in real time for a few seconds before we speed it up just a little bit. But if you're following along with me, feel free to pause it at any time if you need to catch up. Once the base of my tree is done, I'm going back to my watercolor palette. I'm loading up my brush with turquoise and painting it right on top of the azo green. It's okay if the azo green is still wet because then the colors will mix and bloom together for a lovely watercolor effect. I'm also not painting the turquoise right to the edge of the tree. I want some pure azo green on the edges of those needles so it looks like the sun is shining directly behind the tree. And so our last step in coloring the base of the tree will be to grab the phthalo blue and drop it right into the turquoise and azo green. We're just going to follow up the middle of the tree where the shadows would be the darkest and the deepest. Once we've finished up this step, we'll clean off our brushes, give everything a quick dry, and then we can move on to painting snow. Alright, so I'm just going to get some white Crafters acrylic paint for the snow. I'll use my little number 1 round detail brush for this part, and I'll apply the snow following along the branches of the Christmas tree. So it looks like it's laying in the same direction that the branches are falling. Now, it's fine to me that the blue is showing through here. because after I dry it, I'm going to add another layer of white acrylic paint and cover up some of those blue spots. But it's still okay after that some of the blue and green are still showing through, because then it looks like shadows from the snow. So I'm doing two things here that I want you to notice. First, I'm making sure that we have space in between each of the snow piles. And then secondly, I want the snow piles to be a little bit uneven. I don't want them to travel up the tree symmetrically. So the more asymmetrical we can be, the more random they look, the more natural our Christmas tree feels. We'll do a quick dry with a hair dryer and finish filling in the white snow piles. And just like that, our Christmas tree is done. We're going to start working on our background now, so let's make a little puddle of phthalo blue on our tray. I want to make it really watery so that it's nice and light and sky color. You don't absolutely have to paint your horizon line before you start the sky, but I find a little bit of guidance helpful. My next step will be to grab my larger brush and start painting the sky. I'm going to be careful to go around the tree and not touch the branches while I'm doing this. One, so I can have a white halo around it that looks like the sun is shining behind the tree. And two, I don't want the green paint to bleed into my sky. However, if you do accidentally touch the edges of the branches and you find that you bleed some green over into the sky, it's okay. Just grab a paper towel and you can dab it up before it dries. Or if it's not too bad, just leave it. I'm also not going to paint my sky to the edges of my paper or in a perfect square or circle. I really like the effortless look that comes from an irregular patch of watercolor behind the tree. Once I'm happy with my sky, I'll take that same sky blue and draw a cast shadow line underneath the tree. It's okay that the green will bleed into it. Then I'll clean off my brush, dry it up. Then I'll take that dry brush and wipe it along the sharp edge of that shadow while it's still wet. This will soften that edge and make it more diffuse. And a quick pass with a hairdryer before I grab my metallic gold. I found this in the craft aisle at Walmart. Then taking that little detail brush, I'll dab a tiny little star at the top of the tree. I've still got some white acrylic left from the snow, so I'll use that to make some snow flurries around my tree. I realized after I recorded the video that my camera just didn't quite pick up those white snow flurries, but I did scan it onto my computer, so if you hang around until the end, you can see those snow flurries in their full glory. And now, what's a magical Christmas tree without a few gold magical snowflakes flurrying around it? And we're done. Thank you for watching.